Chapter 5. Gifts of the Spirit. The importance of spiritual gifts. The Latter-day Saints profess to believe in spiritual gifts. Indeed, we say that the true Church of Jesus Christ must have those gifts to be the true Church. We believe in the gift of tongues, prophecy, revelation, visions, healing, interpretation of tongues, etc. Seventh article of faith. Many spiritual gifts were given to the ancient prophets, apostles, and righteous saints. Miracles were performed which were called blessings, gifts, and signs. These gifts and blessings were evidences that God acknowledged them as his people. Even the great high priests of the Sanhedrin acknowledged that Jesus had power to do miracles. They admitted it by saying to him, "We know that thou art a teacher come from God. For no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him." John 3:2. This was an indication that these miracles were from God, and it was a testimony to the divinity of his priesthood. Christ performed miracles as foretold by Isaiah 35:5, 6, 42:7, but not to astonish people, nor to satisfy their demands and curiosity. Even when asked for such a sign, he refused, see Luke 11:18. And he never did any miracle for his own benefit. Neither did he perform miracles for publicity. He often told them to keep such a thing secret. Mark 1:43-44, 5:43, 9:9. In his own extreme hunger he would not change the stones to bread, yet he multiplied the bread and fish for others who were hungry. Neither would he ask for the power of divine intervention while suffering on the cross, yet he brought others back to life. We should not seek after signs in order to become believers, yet, if we are believers, these signs should follow. Moroni emphasized the importance of these gifts. I would exhort you that ye deny not the power of God, for he worketh by power, according to the faith of the children of men, the same today and tomorrow, and forever. And again, I exhort you, my brethren, that ye deny not the gifts of God, for they are many, and they come from the same God. And there are different ways that these gifts are administered, but it is the same God who worketh all in all, and they are given by the manifestations of the Spirit of God unto men, to profit them. Moroni 10:7-8. In the study of the life of Christ, it is interesting to note that he did not heal everyone that was sick, often bypassing some to heal only one individual. See John 5:3-5. Although he had such great powers to perform miracles, yet when he came into his own country and among his own people, he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief. Matt 13:58. Diminishing of spiritual gifts. These wonderful gifts, powers, and blessings gradually diminished in the Christian era when the church went into apostasy. At the present time, many of the Christian churches rationalize and say that those blessings were given only to help the church get started. However, Jesus said, "These signs shall follow them that believe." If they were to be of no particular use or benefit to the believer, it is not reasonable to suppose that Jesus would have promised them. Modern Christendom asserts that these signs were given, not so much for the benefit of believers, as for the convincing of unbelievers. The servants of God, it is said, wrought signs and wonders to establish the divine authenticity of their calling and message. Signs followed, they assert, that all people might know believers from unbelievers, the true church from every other church. Orson Pratt's Works, page 82. These spiritual gifts always exist with the true church, and among the true saints of God. Whenever the power of priesthood is operated through an organized church on the earth, the members have been strengthened in their faith, and otherwise blessed in numerous related ways, by the possession of these gifts. We may safely regard the existence of these spiritual powers as one of the essential characteristics of the church. Where they are not, the priesthood of God does not operate. Articles of Faith, Talmage, page 217. The world suffered from a loss of spiritual gifts soon after the inspired apostles of Christ died. Only a form of the church was left, mostly as offices in government. However, this was not because the Lord had forsaken them, rather because they had forsaken the Lord. The priesthood can operate only on certain laws and ordinances, and when they are changed or deleted, then spiritual gifts are lost. The Book of Mormon explains why these gifts would never be discontinued. And I would exhort you, my beloved brethren, that ye remember that all these gifts of which I have spoken, which are spiritual, never will be done away, even as long as the world shall stand, only according to the unbelief of the children of men. Moroni 10:19. Many other gifts came with the restoration of the priesthood, such as the gift of translation, seership, and written revelations. God freely gave them, but gradually they have been disappearing. The prophet gives the same reason why lack of faith and unbelief. Because faith is wanting, the fruits are. No man since the world was had faith without having something along with it. The ancients quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, women received their dead, etc. By faith the worlds were made. A man who has none of the gifts has no faith, and he deceives himself, if he supposes he has. Faith has been wanting, not only among the heathen, but in professed Christendom also, so that tongues, healings, prophecy, and prophets and apostles, and all the gifts and blessings have been wanting. TPJS, page 270. The Melchizedek priesthood is the principal power and authority through which the gifts of the gospel are manifest. When those gifts are lost, then priesthood power is lost. Do the Latter-day Saints today enjoy all of these gifts which were so prevalent at the beginning of the Restoration? If not, then something is wrong. Heber C. Kimball summed it up by saying, "Are you faithful to your vows? If you are, you will have dreams, and visions, and revelations from the world of light, and you will be comforted by night and by day. But if you do not fulfill your covenants, you cannot enjoy these blessings." JD 3:112. Identifying spiritual gifts. Paul the Apostle listed 9 of these gifts. See I Cor. 12:8-10. Moroni recognized the same 9 with only a slight variation. See Moroni 10:9-16. The main difference in the gifts mentioned by these 2 great men was that Paul said discerning of spirits and Moroni used the words beholding of angels and ministering spirits. The Lord revealed a similar list of gifts to the prophet Joseph Smith, with the addition of a few more, including a discerning of the source of these gifts and powers. See D&C 46:13-27. All these wonderful gifts and powers are manifest whenever and wherever the Spirit of God is found. Matthew Cowley explained the conditions that need to exist in order for the gifts of the Spirit to be manifest. The gifts of the Spirit are enjoyed by the saints, not merely in isolated cases, but wherever the saints are united, live in harmony with the Spirit and precepts of the gospel. It may be said truly that wherever pure faith, unity, and zealous devotion exist, there is no dearth of the gifts of the gospel. Im. Here 2 448-449. Apostle Orson Pratt gives the main reasons why gifts of the Spirit are manifest. These gifts were given for the perfecting of the saints, and if you are saints, where are your gifts? For does it not follow that if you have no gifts, you are either perfect saints or not saints at all? For if you are not perfect saints, these gifts must be among you. Do you know any way to perfect saints independent of these gifts? I do not. J.D. 14:180. In the midst of all these conflicting opinions, the humble servant of God comes forth and boldly declares that no church can be the true church, unless they obey the words of Christ and enjoy the signs of believers. He testifies with authority that all the promises of Jesus will be fulfilled, while there is one believer upon the face of the earth to be perfected and saved. He testifies that all who deny that signs will follow them that believe, are unbelievers, who, according to the words of Christ, must be damned. Orson Pratt's Works, pages 82-83. Where are spiritual gifts today? The president of the LDS Church is called as a prophet, seer, and revelator. Joseph Smith said that all the apostles were also to be sustained as such. I then called upon the quorums and congregation of saints to acknowledge the 12 apostles, who were present, as prophets, seers, revelators, and special witnesses to all the nations of the earth, holding the keys of the kingdom. EPJS, page 109. With this calling, these men should possess and use such instruments as seer stones. In fact, Brigham Young quoted the prophet Joseph as saying that all men are entitled to a seer stone. December 27, 1841. I met with the 12 at Brother Joseph's. He conversed with us in a familiar manner on a variety of subjects, and explained to us the Urim and Thummim which he found with a place, called in the Book of Mormon the Interpreters. He said that every man who lived on the earth was entitled to a seer stone, and should have one, but they are kept from them in consequence of their wickedness, and most of those who do find one, make an evil use of it. He showed us his seer stone. Mill. Start 26-118. Where is the church or church leader today that even claims to have a Urim and Thummim or is using a seer stone? Yet this is one of the spiritual gifts that God prophets are entitled to in directing them in the work of God. Even in 1878 Orson Pratt noticed the absence of this gift. This failure to realize all the blessings and powers of the priesthood does not apply to the elders and lesser priesthood only, but it applies to the higher quorums, and comes home to ourselves, who are apostles of Jesus Christ. We are presented before the church, and sustained as prophets, seers and revelators, and we have received oftentimes the gift of prophecy and revelation, and have received many great and glorious gifts. But have we received the fullness of the blessings to which we are entitled? No, we have not. Who among the apostles have become seers, and enjoy all the gifts and powers pertaining to that calling? J.D. 25-145. Joseph F. Smith also spoke of the responsibility upon church leaders. If the time or condition should ever come to pass that a man, possessing human weaknesses, shall lead the church, woe be to the church, for it will then become like the churches of the world, man-made and man-led, and have no power of God or of life eternal and salvation connected with it, only the wisdom, the judgment and intelligence of man. Gospel Doctrine, 7th ed. Pages 138-39. Much more could be said about the dwindling existence of spiritual gifts today, but the reader should ask himself when was the last time he heard, for example, the gift of speaking in tongues, or interpreting tongues. And these are the least of the spiritual gifts of God. To summarize. 1. Many saints in former dispensations, churches during the time of Christ, and early years of the Restoration, were blessed with powerful spiritual gifts. 2. These gifts were granted to people who obeyed gospel principles, but as they failed to keep those laws and commandments, the gifts were lost. 3. The Church of Jesus Christ on both continents gradually lost those gifts through their apostasy. 4. Mormonism teaches that these gifts should always remain with the true church, and should never be lost or done away. 5. The New Testament, Book of Mormon, and Doctrine and Covenants all contain similar lists of the many spiritual gifts God has provided for the faithful saints. 6. Many men have been called to be prophets, seers, and revelators, but few really attain to that status and enjoy those spiritual gifts. 7. Since Melchizedek priesthood is the power through which spiritual gifts are manifested, when those gifts are lost, priesthood power is also lost. 8. There has been a conspicuous loss of these gifts, powers, and blessings among Latter-day Saints in this century.